If you've ever felt like food takes up more space in your mind than it should, this episode's for you. And I'm talking about food noise, that constant mental buzz about what to eat, what not to eat, and why cravings can feel so loud even when you're not hungry. Hi, I'm Dr. Rock. That's spelled R-A-K and pronounced R-O-C-K. And this is The Health Feast, where we help you make healthy living feel less like a chore and more like an abundant feast. My co-host Po joins me today. Po has been on a remarkable health journey. He has lost over 220 pounds from his heaviest weight. And like so many of you, he's still learning and he's still navigating food noise every day. And to be honest, I'm still navigating food noise most days. So today we're breaking down what food noise really is, how GLP weight loss medications affect it, and the two tools that have helped both Po and I finally turn the volume down and can help you as well. So let's do the show. So today we're going to be talking about food noise. Food noise. Yeah. Do you have any, what comes to mind, Po, when I say that, food noise?
Like a craving for a particular item, or sometimes it's not just items. Sometimes it's just you're thinking about food, certain type of dish. So I would say that's what I would say like a hunger noise is to me.
Hunger noise. Interesting. Yeah, you called it hunger noise. Do you have your own experience with this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I notice it during high times of stress or even coming down off a stressful situation, right? That first thing I think of is like some type of comfort food or, something that I would connect to like some type of calmness after eating that particular. And sometimes it's not even calmness. Sometimes it's just like you're thinking about it, of a certain type of item after, conversation with somebody or, day at work and you're stressed out and you want to get off of work and you start thinking about, I think it's like a mental thing too.
It's totally a mental thing, completely a mental thing. I myself have had this for much of my life. I feel like I was telling my kids the other day that when I was in middle school, I clearly remember like most of the morning thinking about lunch and when lunch was and what I was going to eat for lunch. And if they were going to have like, if they had tacos or something, I would like to get two. What I'd like to say to people is it's like rumination about food. Because, when we say ruminate, it's like when we have these circular thoughts and these anxious thoughts. And some people ruminate about money. Some people ruminate about politics or their job or their relationships. But many of us, we ruminate about food, and that I think is what becomes this food noise. And do you experience this? Like, it's not just like the things you said, but it's almost like the judgment you have about like what you should or shouldn't eat.
I think it's a personal conversation. The food noise is like whatever it is that you are craving. I don't know if it's a judgment thing because it's only you and your thoughts. I guess there would be judgment on if I'm eating a certain way, right? And I'm craving a particular item that's not in that, you know what I mean? I guess it would be
or even then eat it, right?
I mean, that does fall under noise.
So I take care of a fair number of patients. And one thing I've learned is that, and I've experienced this too, is like you just start worrying about what you should eat or shouldn't eat, or what you did eat. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have eaten so much, or maybe I shouldn't have had X, and then in the future, you're sort of thinking like, I know I should probably eat this, but I really want this, or that is the mental struggle, I think, again, of the rumination about food, not necessarily just even the sensation of hunger, but just like the choices we're making.
Yeah. And I think it intensifies that whole process. It intensifies because especially if you are committing to eat a certain way, but yet you're thinking about a particular item and then you end up eating and indulging in it. And then it becomes this whole cycle. Then you're like, that self-talk is either going to be, all right, well, next time I'll make a better decision. Or it could be like, man, I really ruined, my eating plan or whatever. And now I gotta, and then it could take you down another spiral of just like not eating, your calorie deficit or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, But yeah, I do think that when it comes to the drugs, I've had experience on the GLP-1s, and the way it would just, I wouldn't think about food throughout the whole day. You know, if you had a thought of a particular item in the food or whatever during the medication, it wasn't like a drawing to that item. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm all right. You know, like that's how I would describe it. You didn't feel attached to the thought.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
so that's so fascinating to hear that, because one, you're describing like a changing of a relationship with the thoughts, but it's being induced or supported by that medication. And it's also fascinating because of how this medication works. It's an agonist for this receptor for GLP-1. You know, it doesn't produce more of that hormone, but it activates the receptor for that hormone. And unlike the hormone that we produce, which breaks down in minutes, we produce it in the small intestine, but then it breaks down very fast. This lasts for a week. So because of that, it also goes to the brain. You know, our GLP-1, because it breaks down so fast, can't really go to the brain. This one goes to the brain, and what we're learning, or what we've learned and learning, is that it affects our reward pathways, just like you're saying, so that we don't desire these things. And when we don't have a desire for them, we stop thinking about them. And, you know, really it's our craving that makes us, I think you're right, it's our craving that makes us first start that whole cycle of ruminating about these things.
Yeah, I think the medication, from what I remember, like it's interesting that it's a week. So maybe you can help me understand. Like you said that usually the medication lasts a week, and now that's like particular medications that do that, right? Because I think there are ones that the one I had was a weekly dosage. So
yes, that's
right. But then there are other ones that do different.
Generally speaking, I mean, there was an older one that you had to take daily, but these newer ones, like the two in particular that people are using, you take them once a week. That's right. So they last in your system about once a week. I mean, they are developing like newer ones that maybe will last longer, or there's a pill that you take, I think, weekly. So there are going to be more and more ways, but I want to just back up and frame this, that I think many, many people struggle with this. Like on the drugs or not, like I think this is a very common problem. I'll meet anyone, especially anyone who's struggled with their weight, and if I ask about this or we start talking about this, it resonates with them very quickly.
Yeah, and I do think that there's a percentage of people that I think the medication could benefit. I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but I can see for those who have tried everything, at least in the resources that they have around them, they've tried everything.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not everything, but I can see where these medications, because I can say that it does help with the food cravings and the noise, the food noise, the hunger cravings. Like it really does help with that.
Well, there's a couple things there. My thought is, one, I agree with you. They are powerful tools. I'm not saying we shouldn't use them. Actually, I tell people when we use them, actually it gives you the bandwidth, perhaps for the first time in a long while, to think about other things, to start to focus on your self-care. Because if you're thinking about food and what you should and shouldn't eat all the time, like that's exhausting, and it really prevents you from having the mental bandwidth to think about other things.
I agree. And I think the average person, they've already got a lot on their plate, right? And this is just, the average person has a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes taking that personal inventory in terms of looking inside and making like your self-care is a big thing. And I do think that there's a place for these types of medication. It's not long-term, but I mean, even the idea of getting on it and then seeing results and then noticing and then eventually getting off of it, right? Like that would be the goal, right? That's for those people that are super busy. And it is a personal choice. Like a person has to decide, like, I got to take the time to do the internal stuff first. Am I for these medications like 100% all the time? No, I think there's like everything, there's probably some type of health issues.
I think they're being misused. Like, I think what we're talking about is that they're a powerful tool and they can create bandwidth one then can do some internal work. And because I think what you're also getting at is like so much of our cravings and eating are responses to some underlying either emotions or stress or both. And unless you address those things, that or you're on the medication in perpetually, like even on the medication, people get tolerant. We have to keep going up on the dose. And then eventually we can't go up on the dose. So I am seeing people who've been on the medication for quite some time, and that the cravings are sort of starting to come through the highest dose. So that's where I say to them, I say, while you're on this medicine, let's use this as an opportunity to build the self-awareness and the skills. Yeah. In the future, you won't need, just like you said, like in the future, ideally, you won't need this medicine. But that's not easy thing to do. And most people, I think, like you're getting at, don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do that, or the knowledge to know that that's the kind of direction or path that they should go down.
Yeah. And I think I'm hoping that my experience with the medication didn't have a game plan attached to it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it should be a responsibility, of those who are issuing the medication to be able to say, hey, this is not a long-term fix. It'll get you moving. It'll get the ball rolling, but there should be some direction towards when do you feel like the hunger craving or that food noise is coming? What do you notice?
Yes.
Work on that self-awareness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that they can start, because a lot of times I feel like, not everybody, but I'm just saying a lot of times people just don't want to deal with it. So, like any substance, right? Whether it's alcohol or, food can also fall under that same umbrella, because now the thing that's crazy about it is that because you need food, right? Like, so it doesn't have a negative context. Like if you say alcohol, you're like, oh man, but with food, it's sort of like dressed nice, but it could kill you, too much of it, diabetes and high blood pressure, Anyways, yeah.
Well, I think, yes, you're right. First of all, food is ubiquitous. I totally agree. Like, it's different than a substance because we're constantly surrounded by food. And, the cards are stacked against us, because if you look at the food environment that modern society has created, I mean, I was just at the grocery store yesterday and literally like had to dodge like a tower of Oreos, tower of Ritz crackers, and cheap, like buy one, get one free, $2, like cheaper than any of the produce I was buying. And, even on the way out, I saw these mint striped cookies and I picked one up, looked at the package, and I was like, this is insane. Like, I've done shopping and they have a whole display of these chocolate cookies. Like, I'm sure people see them and they're like, oh, I got to go back and buy these now. So their goal is not our health, right? These food companies, no, it's to maximize their profits, their shareholders' profits, and they'll do anything they can to make this food addictive. And they're using ingredients that are highly subsidized, like corn and soy, so they can bring the cost down. You wonder, why are these products so cheap? Like, why can we buy a big package of cookies for $1 at the dollar store? $1.25 at the Dollar Tree? Like, there's some, and they're still making a profit off of that. So clearly, like, their cost to make these things is really low because they're using these highly processed ingredients. That food environment, it makes it so hard for people. Yeah.
No, and I think I had conversations about, like, whenever a company has a taste engineer, I don't know what the technical term is for those positions.
They have these, that's the name, taste engineer. Yeah, they have these scientists, these food scientists.
So you have a position where the whole job is to get it to be more addictive. Salt and sugar, like how to measure that. You hope that everybody, like everyone, when they hear that hopefully that triggers some type of thought of like, man, if the name of the game is to get me addicted to it so that you stay in business, that's scary, man. That's scary.
Yeah, that's ultimately what they care about. They don't think about the downstream effect, which is that this is like ruined our society's health, really. Like, it's created this, it's one of the biggest drivers of the epidemic of chronic disease that we have. So if you can take a medication that sort of just like makes you not want those things anymore, like, that's going to have a huge impact on your health. The problem is most people stop these medications within 6 months. And there's a variety of reasons. Some people don't tolerate them. Other people, they change jobs or change insurance and the new insurance isn't covering. I said most people come off the drugs in 6 months. Has anything in your life helped you with the food noise? Like, because you're not on one of these GLP-1 drugs anymore, right?
Not. And that's a really good question. I do think that counterintuitive, but like I kind of stay busy. You know what I mean? Like most of the time now, like if I have that food craving, I really just go into like thinking about whatever goals that I'm setting in the day. You know what I mean? Like, should I be spending more time being mindful? Like, yes, but I do actually think about where the thought's coming from. Like when if I'm craving some type of pastry or something sweet, I'm always like, man, what's going on with me right now that's like having me crave the sugar or that particular item. And what I find is that the thought will pass. Nowadays, it'll just pass, and it just takes the time to get to that point. It's not like, and do I always win? No. Sometimes if something's in front of me and I'm like, oh man, that looks good.
Yeah.
I haven't had it in a while, I'll just eat it.
Yeah.
I'll just make an impulse choice.
Yeah.
But if I'm on the road driving, or if I'm on an errand, or I'm doing something, or even if I'm at home or something, and then I start something in particular, for me, I just try to think about it. And it has to be consistently there though. It's not like sometimes thoughts just come to your mind and you just, move on to the next one. But that type of craving, which I used to have really strong thoughts, not as intense as it used to be. I just remember it being more intense when you try to not think about it.
Yeah, that's like if I told you not to think of a pink elephant. First thing that pops into your head. Well, you know what? I counsel people. I mean, what you're saying, I actually counsel people to, first of all, notice. Like the first step is just being aware, because you said it right. A lot of times we're eating impulsively. There's no space between the thought and the reaction of grabbing the food. So if you don't have any space there, then there's no opportunity to change your response. And that's where I think getting some training that a little bit. It could be 10 minutes of meditation, but it could be just actually during your commute. If you have 10 minutes of silence, don't put the radio on. Just, focus on some sensation or your breath while you're driving and notice your thoughts. Because if you can notice your thoughts, you're saying in the moment, and notice them without judgment, oh, I'm having more food noise, just labeling it. Like you said, most of the time it passes. Not always. Sometimes it's really, really strong. And when it's strong, I think that's when you can do the next step, which is sort of, where is this craving? Where am I feeling this craving in my body? Does that resonate with you, Po? Like you sort of get like tension in your body when you're having a craving?
And it's usually attached to something that's happened, interaction with something or someone, what I mean? And it could have been, a few days ago, and you're still thinking about it, or it's coming back into your mind. And now it's triggering a response of like, where do I feel most comfortable or what, you know what I mean? And remember, we were just talking about how some people manifest in different things. Some people drinking. I think it's just some level of escape, like you kind of want to escape that feeling, that experience. So you reach for something.
You use food to numb it. Yeah, food just numbs it. You get that instant dopamine hit, whatever it is, salt, sugar, fat, all three. And you feel good in the moment. When we eat those things, we also lower cortisol, in the moment. The problem is, of course, is that you don't feel good afterwards, and it has devastating effects to our long-term health if we do that regularly. So that's where actually just doing a quick check-in with your body, noticing the thought, but it's like really strong. It's really strong. It's like, well, did you check in your body? Like, where am I holding tension? And then use your breath. Use your breath to try and help dissolve that tension. Because that's what the body ultimately and the mind care about, is relieving that tension. We've learned the fastest way to do that is to go eat the thing. And if you can teach your brain and your body, there's a new way, there's a different way where I can dissolve this tension, where I can give myself relief, because that's what it wants. It wants that relief. Then it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's something you have to cultivate and practice. Exactly. That's what I tell people when they go on these drugs and the food noise quiets down. This is when you may have the bandwidth to do 10 minutes of meditation now. That's when you may have the bandwidth to start noticing some of these things.
And I think what's crucial too, attached to that, like, we were just talking about how busy people are and they don't have the bandwidth. But I think fasting is one of the best ways to hear your cravings, not just with food. That's with your phone, or you know what I mean? Because where we remove food and fasting, you replace it with the next thing that you want to do. So if you notice that you're constantly, because your body is craving food, right? Because you're fasted for 24 hours, you're finding that you want to, where's my phone? So I feel like, I don't know if you can speak to this, but then the mind reaches to the next thing that it can consume, right?
Yeah, that's so true, Po. Wow. That's really, really astute. I think that's so true. First of all, fasting, when you said it, I agree with you, actually. That is one of the things when you experiment with fasting or just mindful meal timing, you learn that you can start to sort of ignore some of those signals. And then over time, I think what you're getting at is like the food noise goes away because your brain is like, oh, he's not responding to this. You're not going to get that reward. So let's move on to something else, which is what I think people don't think about is what are you replacing it with then? If you're fasting, you're not eating food. Yeah, I think a lot of us are replacing it with our devices. Yeah.
Because it's convenient. Like it's in the pocket. It's close to you all the time. So because you're putting, after a few hours, I don't know. For me, I remember it took, sometimes even 24 hours if I'm doing a long fast, that's how long it took me to re-up my body to just like, okay, we're not eating, right? But then in the meantime, when you're trying to just stack hours, in the beginning, let me just get to this hour. Let me get to this time of the day. And the next thing you know, I feel like now, because I'm not eating, my phone becomes the next thing I need to consume. Now I'm getting the hits through like, I don't know, checking social media.
You're right.
Playing a video game or I don't know, scrolling, and you're just finding the next thing that's going to supplement for that. You hear people that just go on they trap like a day out in the outdoors where there's no limited time on their phones. Obviously they have their phones on it, but it's not like they're just screened, their nose is to the screen, but they go outside and they go for a hike, or they're going to nature, they go to the park. And we've talked about how that, and we've had several guests on the show that talk about being out with the nature and how that kind of reconnects you to the natural world again.
Totally.
Anyways, I was just wanted to finish that thought with that.
No, totally. I think that is something I've been trying to do more recently, is just to have moments of silence. Like I used to go out on walks and I'd always listen to something. I'd listen to a podcast, or now I'm doing exactly what you said. I'm just going out and being out with the sounds and whatever I'm experiencing, and with my thoughts. I think a lot of times I would listen to things because I just wanted to not be alone with my thoughts. I think a lot of people don't want to be alone with their thoughts. They're scared to be, or it's uncomfortable to be alone with their thoughts.
Yeah, I've been there too. You don't really want to think about what's going on, or finances, or a relationship with a family member that's gotten bad. I find myself now, I just don't, I'll just have silence in the car, and I don't know. I think I'm better with my thoughts in this stage for now. I haven't had any bad times with it, but there's some peace that comes with going on a walk and you're not listening. I obviously like being away from cars, and if you can get to a place where it's just nature, right? Or even the ocean, like going to the beach, all you hear is the waves. Like there's something that's soothing about that, right?
So I'll just kind of sum up what we said, which is, if one is, and like many people are struggling with this, and you're struggling with your weight, like it's totally reasonable to talk to your doctor about potentially considering one of these medications. But in absence of that, say you don't have coverage or you're not interested in going on one of these medications, this is how you can cultivate some control over it. You can train the quiet. You can spend a little bit of time on mental fitness or meditation every day. And then in the moment, you can label the noise. You can notice the thoughts without judgment, and you can feel the craving in your body, and then use breath and awareness to dissolve the tension. And like you said too, you can give your body space. You can experiment with gentle fasting or mindful meal timing to try and better understand how you're responding to those hunger cues and those sensations you're having in your body, and learning how to sort of let go of your reaction to them.
Yeah, thank you, Rock. That was, hopefully this helps somebody.
Yeah,
because
hopefully.
it's great because it's offering both, one for the other. And some people, I think for those who are trying to stay away from it, I think this is another way of doing it. It could be challenging, it couldn't be, but like I think what I'm taking away from it is just that the mindfulness is key, in that self-awareness really is how one can know.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, Poe, this was really interesting. I think probably something, a lot of people struggle with, and hopefully this episode helped people. So appreciate the conversation with you, my friend, as always.
Rock on, brother.
Rock on. Okay, boom. All right, until next time, everyone, live well and rock on. We'll see you back here at the Health Beast.